Hey gang, what's going on? And welcome to Talking Vegas All Day with KA. I'm your host, KA. And on today's episode, we are going to wrap up our Vegas Icon series when we talk about Bob Stupak's Stratosphere, or as it's now known as, simply the Strat. But before we get started, make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and punch that notification bell so you can get up to date information when we drop new episodes. And also follow us on Apple and Spotify so that you can listen to the podcast anytime, anywhere. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and talk about the Stratosphere on Talking Vegas All Day with me, KA.
Let's go to Vegas, baby. Let's go tonight.
Right now,
Let's go to Vegas. We'll stay up all night.
I've been in the
Let's go to Vegas. Let's get away.
So last time on the show, we discussed the observation deck that Bob Stupak had put together and its opening, and we discussed a little bit about all the amenities that it had. So on today's episode, we are going to discuss just basically the Stratosphere from the time the last episode left off. But first, we're going to backtrack just a smidge to when the observation deck and the hotel officially opened. So the observation deck and the actual Stratosphere opened, as I said last episode, on April 30th of 1996. And the tower was open to a lot of great fanfare. People were excited, but also some misadventure. During the grand opening, a massive fireworks display that was shot off at the top of the observation deck. The smoke from the pyrotechnics set off the smoke alarms. Now, gladly, the alarms worked. However, many visitors, all dressed up in tuxedos and, formal wear, had to run down the steps of the observation tower, down those hundreds of steps that we talked about, onto the ground floor to escape. Bob Stupak's observation tower was off to a great start. Not really, though. And unfortunately, due to a few factors, such as Stupak thinking that the observation tower and the Stratosphere itself would sell without any marketing, they didn't really market to local communities or even Vegas tourism in general. Also, the fact that it was located in Naked City, north of the Strip, and Naked City being crime-ridden at the time, really didn't attract a lot of tourists. It was further away from Circus and Riviera, so it was kind of out there by itself. Sure, you had Sahara, but people weren't walking from the Strip up to the Stratosphere as much. That first year, it really struggled to even draw, and unfortunately, in January 97, less than a year, being $313 million in debt and owing to creditors and loans, the Strat Corporation had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, if you remember in last episode, I talked about Stupak not really wanting to get involved in a corporation setting because of the fact that he didn't want to not lose control, and he was used to just owning everything outright like he did with Vegas World. And unfortunately, that worry came true as Stupak during the bankruptcy lost control of the Stratosphere and majority ownership when Carl Icahn bought out Stupak and the corporation outright through his company subsidiaries. Now, Stupak, seeing this, tried to gain back control in August of 97. He purchased $1 million in mortgage notes and planned on airing a video criticizing the board members who had resigned from the Stratosphere Corporation. And on the day after announcing the video, Stupak decided to shelve the airing, stating that he already caught people's interest and that the video was no longer necessary and that the timing wasn't perfect. Now, in the video, he basically says, we have to save the Stratosphere. We have to save the shareholders. And he said they lost more money than I ever heard of. So what do? They surrendered. He also criticized them for having their own proposals, for not meeting with them. It was an ugly, let's say, breakup. And in October, his takeover failed. And unfortunately, in that year, Grand Casinos confirmed that it would have no more involvement with the Stratosphere or its reorganization. Upset and down, Stupak tried to take over a few other properties and make a comeback, but nothing ever materialized. So unfortunately, that was the end of Bob Stupak in the stratosphere. Now, in that year, after Icon took over, he had some big ideas, Carl did, for updating the Strat. But again, due to being $313 million in debt, lawsuits pending from the bankruptcy, and amount owed, he couldn't really start. Now, he had a $65 million plan to refurbish the rooms that were not done under the initial opening. See, when the Stratosphere had opened, folks, the rooms weren't done yet. So that really kind of put a damper on the opening as well. He also wanted to shift the marketing, Carl did, to more of the value customer rather than the high end. And that seemed to have worked. In 99, finally, he was able to see that. 5,000 square foot sports book was open, and that saw about 8,000 people visiting there and the tower daily. The construction of the unfinished towers was resumed in 2000. The tower of 24 stories was topped off on November 2nd. $65 million project included 1,000 rooms, 67,000 square foot pool and recreation area, and a coffee shop. And also the retail mall, the tower shops were all finished. And Carl saw a lot of profit that year, and the Stratosphere started making a significant profit finally. Fun fact, during that time, the resort also opened one of the very first topless pool areas on the 21st floor, known as the Beach Club 25, later named Radius. And that was designed to attract European owners. So rather than getting local and national tourists, they were going international and trying to really hit the European market. And also the younger demographic, which at that time was becoming increasingly more popular. And that was really when you saw in 2000 the start of the EDM movement. They also added an additional pool that was more family friendly as well. And it was becoming one of the more popular strips due to its pricing, obviously the pools, and business was really good. And particularly in 2006 and 2007. They even added in 2007 a retro-themed nightclub called Polyesters, which featured themes based on the past 4 decades, with memorabilia dating all the way back to 1970. And right before the Great Recession in 2008, Icon, making a profit, announced they would sell to Whitehall Street Real Estate Funds, a Sachs and Goldman affiliated firm, and they purchased it in February 2008. And the company planned on spending $25 million in additional renovations. Now, as of course we know, and a lot of Vegas nerds know, that 2008 almost crippled the Vegas economy, and in some cases did. Obviously, it put lots of people out of the homes, and I won't really discuss a lot on this episode, but it was very devastating. And right before that, and right before the recession hit, the new ownership had given employees stricter work guidelines to follow and also stricter rules for the gamblers as well. And that was mixed with mixed criticism. A lot of people like the lax, low-end, kind of free, value budget kind of atmosphere rather than a little bit more upscale, swanky, stricter atmosphere that the new ownership gave. Polyesters also closed at the end of 2008 due to the economy. And as a result of this recession, the Stratosphere laid off a ton of workers at the end of 2009 and continued to struggle financially through 2010. And because of that, the $25 million improvement that this firm had promised really never happened. And for the longest time, the Strat just kind of sat there alone on the end of the strip, especially with Sahara closing at the time. And it became really hard because, again, walking from Riviera to Circus, people weren't making that trek. And things continued until about 2016, when finally they celebrated their 20th anniversary. Stratosphere did, and at the time the resort was getting back to about 1,600 employees, and clientele consisted mostly from tourists of California, international such as Great Britain and Canada. The resort gaming revenue hadn't fully recovered. However, other aspects of the property such as restaurant, the tower, they were recovered. Around 2017 then, Golden Entertainment purchased the property for $850 million and included in that portfolio the observation tower and a few other properties from the Stratosphere. And they planned on making $140 million renovations at that time. That'd be completed over 3 phases. At the time, though, people merely thought that it was going to be just the observation tower and other properties, and they were not thinking that it would include the resort casino and the hotel. However, Golden Entertainment would continue with that and would begin their renovations. And one of their biggest announcements through the renovations was in 2019, that year, in March, they announced that they were going to rename the resort from the Stratosphere to the Strat, which was a name the locals called it. And people that were Vegas nerds, they always referred to it as Strat. I even did. And in 2009, Golden Entertainment also announced that they were going to open up more live entertainment. They were going to have a showroom on the casino floor, and they were going to turn one of the lounges at the time into a entertainment area. They also had new slot machines, more seating, more restaurants as part of their phase. And they also updated the exterior and landscaping efforts and a drone tracking device as well. In January of 2020, the official renaming took place. It was called the Strat Hotel Casino and Sky Pod, and also they updated new self-check-in rooms and updated over 2,000 rooms to update the process, and added new restaurants and shops as well to the tower shops. And that's really where kind of we catch up to this point in the life of the Stratosphere. So a couple other notes. If we're going to talk some entertainment, a few shows have come and gone. I just want to talk a little bit about that. The Stratosphere included the 700-seat Broadway showroom called Image Cabaret, and also they opened a smaller lounge area with celebrity impersonators known as America's Superstars. And also Danny Gans in the major showroom, as you know him. He's Mr. Vegas, Entertainer of the Year, had a residency there early on. After that, American Superstars, Viva Las Vegas, also opened and became one of the longest running shows in Las Vegas history at the time. And that would close later in 2006. So for the longest time, it was the longest running show on the Strip at the time. They also built a grandstand to host boxing matches and live concerts. 2004, they opened the Theater of the Star showroom, which launched our first topless review, which was a vampire theme called Bite, featuring rock and roll music. In 2011, American Superstars closed as the resort and the producers came to a consensus that it was time to shut that down. MJ Live, a Michael Jackson theme, came to the resort in 2016. And in 2019, Celestia, which was built in an outdoor tent area, sort of like the show at Caesars Absinthe, performed in a 30,000 square foot tent located outside the Strat and was very popular as well. In terms of the casino and restaurant area, they had 45 table games, 1,500 gaming machines, 10 poker tables. Maximum bet in most of the table games was $25, and the overall square footage of the casino itself is 80,000 square feet. They also have 6 bars and lounges, including a brew house and a whiskey bar, two of KA's favorite things. They have a buffet and 7 restaurants, which are highly acclaimed. A very nice lineup there for the Strat and its entertainment over the years. So I want to touch real quickly on closing on the tower shops. As I mentioned it briefly throughout this episode and also as in the previous episode. So the tower shops initially had 3 themes: a French area, Chinese area, and a Manhattan area. It was even supposed to have a rainforest cafe. However, the tower shops never really came to be this grandiose like the canal shops or Miracle Mile or Forum Shops or anything like that, even though that was kind of the theming of it. It's still around today and it does well, but they were hit with bankruptcies, lawsuits. Initially, in the first 3 years, only 39 of the 50 proposed shops were opened. The lot closed during the recession. It sat vacant for a while. But yeah, it had a lot of difficulties due to the unfinished resorts and constant construction and updating as well. Luckily today, it's still at about at least 90% leased now. So it has made a comeback and it's pretty much going to be what it is today. I'm glad to see it never fully closed, because when I was there one time, it was a ghost town and it seemed like it was never going to make it and probably was going to be shut down, but it's come back and that's good to see. Overall impressions of the theme, would I stay there? No, I would never stay at the Strat. However, I do enjoy my time there gambling, eating. I've never won anything, and just hanging out. Obviously, top of the world, as I've told you, love that. And the observation deck has great views. It's a cool place, and I recommend you going there and visiting. It's really kind of Bob Stupak's grand and final, vision that led to that resort and casino being built today. So I close this Vegas Icon series saying, hey, Bob Stupak, for all he did for Vegas, he's definitely a Vegas icon, because he created Vegas World. He created an iconic landmark in the observation deck. Years later, he would frequent Top of the World, and he would say, he always was bitter of the fact that he never built the tallest building in the world, which was the observation deck. That people always said, hey, you built the tallest structure in Las Vegas, and he wanted to build the tallest tower in the world. That was more of a disappointment to him, I think, than him losing control of the Strat. That's it for Bob Stupak and his little run in Las Vegas. Obviously, he's an icon. But tell me, what are some of the things you feel Bob Stupak left behind? And what are your overall impressions of the Strat today? Leave it in the comments below. And make sure on your way out, hit the like button, click subscribe. And tell me, did you really enjoy this Icon series? I'd like to do more down the road. But that's all the time we have for today on Talking Vegas All Day. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day.